Joining us in the sub role after Justin's not being here with whatever old man excuses Justin's given us.
He's hungover.
He's not the head of the classified. No, that's Sam, but everyone thinks he is the head of the classified.
Well, he kind of is the head of Declassified, but he's not the head of Declassified.
He's the only head of the classified, and that's Gary Head.
Yeah. Oh, Chuck. I just watched his face just shrink into the Skype void.
We're going to add him back here.
All right.
You're going to behave now, Chuck?
Oh, wait, you guys dropped me?
Well, you didn't think that you were actually talking us into silence, did you?
No, I was just going on. I've been holding on to it for about a week.
That's what we figured.
Note cards are involved.
Oh, crap. Where did I cut off? Did you hear the part about the mayo and horseradish sauce?
No, and that's for the best. It's a family show.
Other than when he had the aqua, never mind, plastic male member. Anyways.
What? All right.
Gary?
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm here. Aqua Lube or whatever you're talking about. I'm here.
How are things going with D-Class?
Things are in their JoeCon preparation stage, which means that a couple dozen people all have to get on the same page in order to pull off everything that needs to be pulled off. So it's going as it always does.
As someone that's been on that train from past experience, that train does not like to leave the station very easily.
No, but it's not your usual reasons for. It's usually because of it's usually the content. It's, trying not to be repetitive, trying not to be redundant, trying to have everything make sense, trying to make sure that there's no holes in it that don't need to be there or that shouldn't be there. It's, it's not your usual why things don't get done type thing. It's more so it's a lot of information, a lot of people, and obviously we'll talk about this later, but it's all stuff that people in Declassified already sort of know, and so we're trying to present to people who don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so to prepare for that, we have to, step outside our whatever we've been talking about for the last year that we haven't really shown anybody. We have to remember that we haven't shown anybody and not kind of, what's the word?
You have to do some review.
Yeah, we have to kind of, we have to go back and pretend that we haven't seen it before so we can get in that mindset to share it that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a bit different than our program, Gary, and we're just lazy.
Yeah.
They're actually trying to get it right. We're a 2-bit slime show, so
it's what's on Joe mind, which means you can just sit there and think about it. It's not what's on Joe's treadmill or what's on Joe's plate for the day. It's all mental for you guys.
Yeah, what's on Joe's treadmill is clearly laundry. Looking at our cast of characters, truly, it's a laundry catching device.
That's one reason why we don't have a treadmill in my house.
already got a clothesline.
It'll be used really, really frequently, and then after a while, it dries clothes very well.
You can't tell me that Chuck hasn't found a way to deliver himself food on a treadmill.
Chuck?
Yeah.
Okay, he was not paying attention.
No, I was paying attention.
Chuck lives in New York. They deliver everything there.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I'm just acknowledging it. I mean, it just proves my point that pretty much every person I know named Gary is a dick.
Ed, you gonna take that?
Oh, yeah, I'll let him have that one.
All right, let's move on to our favorite things that we typically talk about. Now, in the past, we've talked about vintage figures. There were no releases of anything Joe in 99, so we thought we would go back into the comic well one more time. And this time we'll talk a little bit about Devil's Due covers. Devil's Due is often overlooked. The whole having this series in a disavowed state kind of, I think, devalues really the work that Devil's Due and everybody put into the series. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our 3 favorite issue covers from the first, 43 releases before it went to America's Elite. So, starting with Mike, what are your 3 favorite Devil's Due G.I. Joe issue covers?
All right. Well, of course, I'm going to be partial to issue number 7.
Well, of course.
Beachhead getting the recruits in line. For a long time, this was the one where Beachhead made his reappearance. with the team, and for a long time, I was not on board at the beginning of the Devil's Due relaunch. That was the first issue that felt anything close to normal, so I actually really enjoyed that issue anyway. Second spot, I'm going to go with number 28, which is Barrel Roll in his action pose there with that the jetpack that I can't remember the name of, dressed in his Raptor Viper spy gear that they never got around to releasing an actual version of, but still pretty cool. And also, really at the peak of Brandon Jerwa's run, I think Brandon Jerwa's run was the highlight for Devil's Due.
Yes, it was.
And I really think he did some great work for that company, and it's unfortunate that it got kind of wiped away. And of course, my third spot, because I am going to reel back a little bit to issue 16, because it's that CoverGirl and Spirit pack.
Yeah, you are.
That you hate so much.
It was a good issue. It was just a bad fan vote.
It was a terrible issue. It was an awful issue.
It was a better issue than it was fan vote.
I hated that they recast CoverGirl as Scarlet Light, and that issue is pretty well what did that. So
that was pretty much forced on them by the fans. Everyone's like, I gotta have CoverGirl. I gotta have CoverGirl. It's just like in America's Elite when they forced CoverGirl and Shipwreck to be a couple.
I mean, you can bring back CoverGirl. I don't have a problem with that, but she drives a tank. She knows armor.
Right. I agree.
She is a mechanic, and putting her through the quickie crash course of Covert Ops School isn't character development. It's a convenient plot point. Yeah, didn't care for the issue one bit, but I'm going to pick the cover just to be annoying.
Certainly a better issue than it was fan vote. Let's put it that way.
Fans didn't vote on that.
No, fans did not vote on that. It's impossible. It's a conspiracy, I tell you. Even Gary Head believes it's a conspiracy.
I don't know if Gary Head was in the hobby at that point.
The fans' choice vote, that issue 16 won. Are you up on that?
I think that was pre-2008.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a G.I. Joe expert, not a G.I. Joe expert.
This is pre-Gary Head. Chuck, what are your three?
Well, okay, I gotta say, doing the research on this was kind of interesting because I never knew. I mean, I knew Image published a G.I. Joe comic, but I didn't know it was like Devil's Due Studios that was doing it. So my first pick has got to be issue number 1. I like the cover, but also, if I remember the story correctly, this issue was actually either released or supposed to be released on September 11th, 2001.
It was released that day.
It was that connection is just very interesting to me. And then my second pick, I have to go with issue 34. I just like that striking cover. The black and white with the American flag. It's because I've read synopses of a lot of these Devil's Due stories because for the longest time this was the official comic, and I think there's some great storytelling there. And then finally, my third pick, which has to be, in my opinion, the greatest comic book cover ever done, issue 16, because it features the great Joe character CoverGirl, as well as Serpentor's Sorta Kid, but it's like. It's like his kid in the same way that Boba Fett is Jango Fett's kid. So, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Gary, what about you?
Well, first of all, nobody told me during show prep that I had to pick between numbers 1 and 45 or whatever.
See, you have all the time in the world because this is not a live show.
But I could just read off the ones that I actually looked at and enjoyed, considering I'm not familiar at all with Devil's Due stuff. So I can either not tell my 3, since they probably don't fit in issues 1 to 43.
All right, well then tell us your favorite Devil's Due.
All right, well, my favorite one, actually, I don't even
look at me compromise. Just tell me your damn cover.
So
come on, Ed.
So Special Missions number 2 with Budo on the cover. I chose that one not because I think it has like amazing art. I mean, it's decent art. It's not that. But the way Budo is drawn is exactly what I think a G.I. Joe cartoon should look like, or at least should have looked like over the past few years. I mean, not everyone likes the anime style of Resolute, and obviously not everyone liked Renegades. I look at this image of Budo on the cover of this comic, and it sort of looks like some of the more serious cartoons based on comics today, just the way the art is done. It almost reminds me of Batman the Animated Series, and I don't know why. But I chose that one because it stood out to me as something I think that G.I. Joe should like in another medium, which has nothing to do with the comic, obviously, because I haven't read it. I mean, I've only read, like, Cobra the Last Laugh and, like, maybe the first 4 issues of Larry Hama's run. Other than that, I avoided G.I. Joe comics as a whole just because it's a little late to start doing that now. And then I chose Storm Shadow number 7 because that's how Storm Shadow should always look, because he means nothing to me as a Cobra. And then I chose this might actually fit, number 12, where the bat's choking out Roadblock. I just love it. Being a superhero comic reader, like Mutants and Avengers, whatever. That one has has that kind of dynamic to it, with the bat choking out Roadblock is like this, more than formidable foe, just sort of grander than not. So I really enjoyed that one, but I actually really enjoyed going through all the comic covers except for the ones that reminded me of people I don't like.
I would have picked Declassified #1, the variant cover that was the Yojo exclusive, because I actually have that.
Quit trying to copy him, Chuck. Nobody likes a copycat.
Nobody likes Chuck.
No.
There it is.
I meant a copycat. I'm reading off a script here.
All right, let me get my 3 out of the way. Issue number 6, Devils Do, actually had that cover as a wallpaper on their website for the longest time. And that still serves as a wallpaper for my computer today, still. My second favorite cover is number 31, which is kind of odd. There's really nothing very remarkable about the cover. It's Duke and Flint coming to blows, but is teasing the first appearance of Wraith. I'm a big fan of Wraith. I think it's one of the more creative villains that they came up with since really Zartan, in my opinion. We had a chance to get Wraith, but unfortunately the fan vote really screwed that. Once again, back to the fan vote. Number 23 is my number 3 cover, and it has basically Serpentor with kind of his minions around him with Cobra Commander and Duke tied up. It's a busy cover, but I'm partial to the coil, obviously, so I'm surprised with Chuck being a cartoon guy that he didn't pick number 14. Chuck, the special hidden, well, actually it's not hidden, the special Easter egg right in your face on number 14?
Gary?
Yeah?
I'll be honest with you. I just picked 3 like 5 minutes before we started recording. So, and then I picked 16 because Mike reminded me that was the one from that Fans Choice comic pack, and I just wanted to stick it to you some more.
So you didn't see right in front of your face on 14 the name on the mailbox?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Gary. I was looking at them and like thumbnails, so it's probably hard for me to see.
That is the Lotta family mailbox.
That's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Much respect. Much respect.
Any other comments, Mike?
No, let's move on from this segment before Chuck makes us sicker.
Is Ted in the house?
I don't know. We'll rustle around and play his theme music. Maybe we'll bring him out. Yes, hello, yes.
Ted, you got some facts for us?
I do. Here and once again is fanciful facts about Springfield. Nestled in the heart of Limestone County, Springfield was once the county seat, but is now part of Fort Parker State Park, home to famous local trees.
Ted.
Do you mind, sir?
I'm just correcting you before you get too far.
Bur oak, water oak.
Springfield, Texas.
What?
Springfield, Texas.
Yes, is that not where the show is?
No.
I'm going to go have some juice.
All right, we'll catch you in the second half of the show.
Ted Baxter, ladies and gentlemen. Ted Baxter.
Oh, God. This is a horrible show.
We're killing momentum left and right.
I know. 99, we are on the heels of 100, and this is just a horrible show.
We can't even blame this on Gary Head.
I'm actually sick, so you can actually blame it on me. I mean, I'm not that kind of sick. I've got like I lost my voice or something. I've got like gyrvitis, but you can blame it on me.
We could blame it on Gary Head, but nobody'd believe it.
I'm blaming it on Justin.
Well, I was just going to say Chuck's here. We can just blame it.
Those Patriot fans. Them.
And that's when the podcast went south.
And on that note,
this portion of What's on Joe Mind is brought to you by Kokomo Toys. Find one of the largest selections of G.I. Joe anywhere in the Midwest, from vintage Joes to the latest straight from Hasbro. They're independently owned and operated. Visit their store in Kokomo, Indiana, or online at kokomotoys.com today.
And we're back, and it's on to the mailbag. Mailbag's brought to you by
all the cool stuff. Be sure to visit all the cool stuff on the web at allthecoolstuff.co.uk. Be sure to tell them you heard them on What's on Joe Mind. And owner Dave Tree will probably not know what you're talking about because he hasn't done a podcast in forever.
I like his style.
If you ever go to Roll Out Roll Call, ask Dave Tree to touch your food.
No. Seriously, there's nothing worse than ingesting food. So basically, for the listeners at home and abroad, at Joe Con in Dallas, Raging Spoon ran up to a pizza I was eating and shoved his hands into it. At which point I just threw the pizza at the wall and went upstairs because I hadn't eaten all day, and someone was nice enough to buy me. I think it was Ben Conway. Yeah, was nice enough to buy me pizza because I was just not in the mood because I hadn't eaten all day. It was just a busy day, and so here comes Raging Spoon with his raging hands into my pizza, and I couldn't take it. I was just like, I'm done. Like, you ruined my zen, whatever. So then comes Roll Out Roll Call, which is an amazing show, by the way, and worth every penny to go up there. I know it's expensive, but it was so worth it. I went to go do a panel or go watch a panel. I forget what I was doing. I come back, and there's a sandwich for me, and it's open. And I didn't really think anything of it because it's England or whatever, the UK. And I'm like, oh, maybe they just leave everything open around here. I didn't even think it. And the thing is, I'm so paranoid, I should have just picked up on it. But of course, my friend Mike, who I was sharing a table with, he just didn't feel the need to tell me. So I eat half the sandwich, and then some girl had something. And I was like, where'd you get? Oh, it was the Wuzzles. Someone had made custom, if you don't know what the Wuzzles are, I'm sorry, but she had a custom Wuzzle stuffed animal. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Where'd you get that? So I followed her into another room, and halfway there I get this message on my phone, and it's a picture of the sandwich that I had just eaten half of. Raging Spoon holding it with his bare hands. So he had groped my sandwich, put it back in the package, put it down. Mike had seen this happen because Mike took the photo of the sandwich being handled. So Mike knew about it and just thought to wait until I'd eaten half of it to tell me. And so, like, I had, like, Raging Spoon cooties for, like, the rest of the trip.
Did you grow a big Civil War general beard?
Yeah, I got a weirder beard, and I'm really bad at casting toys now.
It was great. He comes back in the room. He's like, why didn't you tell me? Tell you what. And he holds up his phone. I see the photo. It's like, oh, yeah, Tim touched your sandwich.
Oh, man.
Just absolutely deadpanned him on it. It was amazing. Meanwhile,
Thanks,
Ray,
Mike.
sitting at the table catacornered us, is pretty much on the ground.
Don't worry, Gary. Mike has, when we finally meet, he's got it coming to him that I'm going to light him up something fierce, and I'll throw a little extra in for you.
Thank you,
Sure,
Chuck.
Chuck.
Sure thing, Chuck.
Sure thing, Chuck. Keep believing.
Maybe we could do this next year if Larry Hama's going to be there. Maybe if you can get Larry to touch it.
Celebrities touching Gary Head's food.
G-Money, let's be honest, what Joe fan wouldn't want Larry Hama to touch their meat?
That's a continuation of the RHP joke, really.
That's not even on our show. It's a Star Joe's joke. We haven't talked to those guys in a while. We need to get them around.
We'll see them at JoeCon, I hope.
We haven't done a tag team with Star Joe's. We need to get them on the show.
You know what would be cool to do a tag team with?
What's that?
Classified Spec Ops.
I thought we were just going to make them a sub show.
Isn't that what this is? And then Chuck's kind of like the ingrown hair, like the third nipple or whatever. Like, isn't that just like
The festering ingrown
that's sort of
hair.
what we're doing right now? Except
Wow, he just offered you solidarity, and you just called him an ingrown hair.
What? No. I mean, he's got it coming too. I mean,
okay. So I also get to watch Chuck not connect in person. Okay.
Chuck is kind of separated from reality, and that he thinks that he's like the Undertaker or something.
Hey, Chuck, you got to leave your house to do a lot of these things, buddy.
Yeah, butter up them sides, Bubba.
Honestly, Chuck, you should come to JoeCon. It will change. You've already heard this for like 70 episodes, though. I can't really just...
excuse me, Gary, that's 99 episodes.
You know what I'm scared of with Chuck showing up to JoeCon? He will be over big because people will be like, it's Chuck. Chuck is here. He gets over all of a sudden.
I'm already over, Gary.
Judge's decision?
No. That is incorrect.
Sound effect and all.
Get the Family Feud thing going in there.
I get you.
We got a spot for some sound effect.
First
letter in ye old Malbog. Hey guys, I had a question that may have already been asked before. With the downtime, not a lot of Joe product. What have you been filling your collecting time with? Picking up any other lines, filling vintage holes, etc. Thanks and keep up the good work. Yosh? No, that's Josh. Josh with a hard J.
What have you been doing, Mike?
Not much, to be honest. Picked up some Hungos from Hunko. Friend of the program, Jay Hunger, with his new foray into 3D printing and toy making. He's made some nice little robot toys that are pretty groovy. Picked up a couple of those. But on the whole, not much. Just kind of enjoying the opportunity to get ahead on some things, really. You know, we just got through the holidays in reasonably good shape because I'm not throwing a ton of money out the door after gobs and gobs of toys. All the stuff that I paid for last year will show up at some point this year.
That's really a segment more for what we got in lately because it's kind of been that long since we recorded about what we got, but much like Mike, the boss fight stuff, I'll be saving up money for Zyka and Eagle Force, saving up money for JoeCon. When I'm at JoeCon, since it's in a city that doesn't have a f***ing airport or one worth a damn, I'm going to be driving, so I'll have a little bit extra room in my car that I can buy some more stuff from Chris Neal this time. So I got some things on my list that I have room that I can buy and I can bring it back.
Don't forget Roma Collectibles. Got to get your flying skull guy so you can be like Strudel.
Strudel!
I know you live up to that.
Strudel.
Strudel!
No, I actually do real IT work during the day instead of bothering the club. Let me call the club and find out when the next round of FSS is going out and possibly find out when the brochure is going to be out. Come on now.
Come on, man!
I was trying to remember who Strudel is. I was like, I know who Strudel is. And I was like, man, he sounds a lot like Mark Callison, though. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God. That's because the Strudel thing is something that like happened when I wasn't paying attention, and I never really like understood it. Now, so I'm sitting here going, man, that Strudel dude sounds like Mark. I love you, Mark.
Yeah. Stop calling the club, Mark. Stop being that guy.
They have jobs.
God,
It's funny because one day I want Mark and like David Lane to be stuck in an elevator together since they're both the commander.
There'll be a fight.
It would.
it'll be quick, but it'll be a fight.
Anyhow, Gary, any interesting pickups over the last couple months?
No, not the thing is this is, not everyone cares about this, and that's fine. I'm not preaching. I'm just saying, like, for me, like, I collect information more than anything, obviously, being a part of Declassified and just doing what I do. And
He's like the CIA, folks.
I'm working on a couple very top secret Joe Declassified things and some really big things and some really exciting things and some really different things. And so I've been spending a lot of time on the phone with former Hasbro designers and a bunch of other stuff. And I've gotten some information that I think and some images that has just kept me busy. Because when there's nothing to buy, and I always hear people like, what do I do when there's nothing to buy? It's, go find another corner of the hobby that you haven't explored, whether it's, licensed stuff or, if you have a favorite character, like go out and find out everything he's ever been on and everything he's ever, like, there's other ways you can enjoy other than purchasing. So like for me though, I never have a downtime because of how I'm involved with Declassified and stuff. So for me, I don't really feel the lag, Actually, it's when product comes out is when I get distracted from what I'm doing. So no, I haven't really gotten anything so much as I've been keeping busy, digging through G.I. Joe's history, which of course some people don't even care about, and that's totally fine. So again, not preaching. I'm just saying, like, I've been keeping busy nonetheless.
Next letter. Hey guys. Love the show. Have a couple questions. In these days of slow Joe releases, any of you guys collect any other Joe compatible lines such as 21st Century Soldier? And this leads into his next paragraph. I collect the Acid Rain World line. Don't think it can be beaten. No, it's been mentioned on here before, but I read Justin's review of the Soul Commander on General Joe's. Couldn't believe he only gave it 3 stars. Surely it's one of the best figures around.
It's not Hasbro.
We're all entitled to our opinions, I guess, except Justin's. When he's reviewing it, quote, non-Hasbro property, Acid Rain.
Oh, he got to the joke too. Okay.
Ooh, slap. Slap. After seeing so many beloved characters get questionable appearances in the first 2 Joe movies, which characters would like to see in the 3rd installment? And in addition, my favorite episodes are the ones where you look back over Joe lines such as 25th, Pursuit of Cobra, etc. Any chance you could do more of these and cover the like of Retaliation figures, Star Brigade, Valor vs. Venom, G.I. Joe Extreme, etc. Cheers and keep up the good work. And Chuck, chin up, big man. The others are clearly getting damp behind the first one. John, Bangor, Northern Ireland.
Okay, first of all, it's chin up, big man. The others are clearly just jealous. And also, I just want to point out for the listeners at home, I actually combined 2 of John's emails. He actually sent us a couple emails, and I just thought it would be nice to combine them into one.
So he goes ahead and edits John's email, but when Curly sends his in, he omits stuff.
Mm.
You know how they say there's like an alternate reality out there for everything that possibly can and will happen, like a parallel Earth for each microscopic action and reaction. Like
Yeah,
somewhere
sure.
out there, there's an Earth where even the most unfathomable thing can happen that hasn't happened anywhere else.
Yeah.
Being Chuck for anything is that one reality that does not exist, not anywhere across the infinite expanses of space and time, not even ironically, not even hypothetically. That's fact, as opposed to opinion.
Fuck you, Goggles.
So it's the unified Chuck theory of
Well, it's kind of like
parallel universes.
No, Chuck, the closest you get to Chuck is like Murphy's Law. Like anything bad that will happen, or can happen, does happen, or is Chuck. Is that how? No, it's anything. Yeah, Murphy's Law is anything that could Chuck, will Chuck. No, that's a different thing. A would Chuck? No.
Dip your goggles in KY and shove them up your ass.
How much could a Chuck? No. How does that go? How does that limerick go? Maybe it's just
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Quit chucking my wood!
Let's get to the first question here.
We will leave his review of Justin's review for a time, maybe when Justin Bell's back on the program. 3 stars, Justin Bell. 3 stars. What's up with you, man?
I find Acid Rain absolutely not interesting at all. I've tried. I've looked at it. At first, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then I looked at it harder, and I don't understand the appeal. Like, I've tried. I don't get it.
Is it me, or we complain about things being expensive, and then that comes out, and that's more expensive?
That's the Joe fan is the one that'll go out and spend this and this and this on Star Wars Black, but when it comes to G.I. Joe, it's like, hey, wait for Ross. Or they'll go out and spend this, and that. I mean, look at Boss Fight. Boss Fight made so much money on that Kickstarter. I mean, nothing against Boss Fight. I don't mean it that way. But honestly, that's money that could have gone towards G.I. Joe if Joe fans weren't, waiting for Ross and what have you. And again, I'm overgeneralizing for the sake of argument.
But Soul Commander and that little Jeep thing it's $50, and that's fine. But a Tomahawk, which is exactly like the Tomahawk you've been clamoring for 10 years or more, comes out for $44.99, and that's too much.
Yeah.
Much like Gary, I'm not into the Acid Rain stuff. I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not discouraging anyone from getting it if you want to get it.
Bad.
No, not at all.
And I know you're not saying it's bad, and I know you're not discouraging anyone from not getting it if they really want it either. It's not for me. It's a little too far past Pursuit of Cobra, which seems to be where the sweet spot where everyone in the collector's like, we can have some new, we can have some old, and that's where we mix things together. Joe-compatible lines, other things that I had before in the past, the BBI 1/18 scale stuff or the 21st century 1/18 scale stuff, I still have that up in my Joe room right now. I dabbled on that a little bit. I have some Leonard stuff. I have the big AC 130 True Heroes playing here behind me. So there are some other stuff that I've gotten that are 1/18 scale Joe compatible. And then I spent a crap load of money, of course, with Boss Fight Studio. And I tend to spend a lot of money for Eagle Force. I guess to answer your question, have I? Yes. But an Acid Rain, just not for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there, too. I'm never big on the mech stuff. For whatever reason, it doesn't appeal to me. I'm not into it with anime. When Joe has ventured into mechs, I've never bought them. And it goes a little bit too far into that. And I don't know why. It just doesn't. Like, I dig Transformers even. I like Transformers well enough as a property to read about robots and get invested enough at least reading a comic book. But mechs just leave me cold. So I don't understand. I'm not saying it's rational even, but it just doesn't work for me. Moving on to the questions, character appearances. Who were not in the first couple of movies that you'd like to see in a third? Of course, we know Gary Godso's answer is Snowjob, so we'll just cut that off at the pass.
That'll be one.
We know that my list starts with Beachhead. We just leave them out as givens. We know Justin, of course, Big Lob. Justin Bell, the biggest Big Lob fan in the fandom.
Bazooka with the Grogan jersey.
That was the big reveal on Facebook this week. Is that
yeah, that's a Grogan jersey?
Steve Grogan jersey on Bazooka, which I guess is why he keeps getting killed in every continuity. They target him like Steve McMichael.
And Richard Dent.
It's the end of that. Cobra's just a bunch of Richard Dents. This is the week we have 2 no sports guys on the show, so we're going to make some really obscure sports jokes.
Let's turn this over to Gary.
Let's make some Super Bowl jokes that are 30 years old.
Gary, you've been very opinionated about the movies. What characters would you like to see in number 3?
I don't want to see any more of my favorite characters, or even characters I don't like. I don't want to see any more of them butchered by bad writing and bad acting. I'm done. Just new characters for the next film. Just stop ruining... I'm not saying ruining my childhood. That's not where I'm going. I'm saying stop ruining things that have so much potential with just blah, just throw it, just blah. They're just hot dog in the hallway here. It's just, I can't.
Hot dog in the hallway.
In the hallway.
I love Dwayne. I love The Rock. I like The Rock. I think that he puts himself out there. I'm all for it. I like Bruce Willis. It's just those movies drive me crazy. The G.I. Joe movies drive me crazy. And so I'm worried they're going to do like Desert Scorpion, and they're going to ruin him. They're going to do, I don't know. They like Zartan. How do you take a character like Zartan and not develop him in a G.I. Joe film? Like, there's so much there. And I just can't. I'm not even going to start with Rise of Cobra, let alone go into Retaliation. So, no, none. Zero. I can't handle it anymore. It's one of those things where there's not many brands can brag and boast of having 50 years of history, and they didn't pull from any of it. And I'm not saying that the films can't stand alone. I'm not one of those people that think that films should mirror their source material. But when you have that much source material to just like, you know, in Rise of Cobra, putting everyone in Transformer costumes, and in Retaliation, like, oh my God, like I don't even know what that was. I don't even know what that movie was. I don't understand the pace of that film at all. As a film as a whole, G.I. Joe or not, I just don't understand Retaliation. Although I've been told by Tim Finn I should go watch the extended version and it'll change my mind. But I've heard the same thing about Blade Runner, and I'm just not going to do it. Anyways, so my answer is none. However, if I had to pick one, it would be characters that will never end up in there. Bullhorn, Freefall, Updraft, but it's not going to happen. So
it makes me feel good that you hate Blade Runner like I hate Blade Runner.
Oh, I know it looks nice and it sounds nice, but it's just
everything should work with that movie, but it's terrible.
I just can't stand it. And it's kind of like David Lynch's Dune. Like everything's there that needs to make it work, and it just doesn't connect. It just
less
doesn't.
Than the sum of its parts.
Yes. Kind of like Terry is a gimp, and so he can't really do anything.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, you guys were talking about feeling sorry for Terry earlier, and I feel sorry that his nose runs faster than he does.
Wow.
Wow. Chuck, who would you like to see in the movie?
Major Blood.
No.
Would give Chuck an opportunity to work on his impression.
Oh.
You have to look at the budgets for these films. If they're already spending all their money on The Rock and Bruce Willis, whoever ends up being Major Blood is going to be like either someone they've pulled out of the 90s that just hasn't acted in a while.
It's going to be Jocko from the old Duracell commercials.
Oi.
Let's be honest, Gary. The best person who could be Major Blood would have been Raul Julia. I mean, he would have loved that role. He would have killed in that role. Every line of dialogue would have been iambic pentameter.
I'm a big Raul Julia fan. He could probably do any G.I. Joe except for M. Bison, and I'd be okay with it.
Well, he'd also be, in his early 70s if he were still alive. So I don't know how well that would work.
Well, yeah. No, well, that's the other thing, too, besides the fact that he's dead.
And anyhow. But so Major Blood from Chuck.
Did you want to put in one besides Beachhead?
It's just kind of, I'm kind of with Gary from the extent of the bar for me is really low in these movies. And as such, I enjoy them because I just think of them as popcorn entertainment. They borrow from it enough that it's familiar, and they were fun and they kept it moving. But I'm not looking for really workable film. I think G.I. Joe is a property that's best served on television. That's where my standards are higher because you have just more time. I'm thinking back to perhaps the biggest argument I ever made to this was that when they came out with the Watchmen movie, that my concern was not that they couldn't do a good Watchmen movie, but that they could do an absolutely superb 8 hours of HBO on a miniseries for Watchmen that would blow any 2.5-hour movie out of the water, but they decided to do the 2.5-hour movie anyway. And I think that's kind of at the very least where G.I. Joe would be for me as a movie property if it was going to be done, quote, right. So G.I. Joe for me, it's kind of disposable as a movie, almost. I hate to say that. I don't want to make it sound like, again, I'm not supportive of it and I don't enjoy them because I do and I will. But I'm just not taking it as seriously. So, throw Beachhead in there. Get what the heck? It's just going to be a name connected to a guy. It's like when Sideswipe showed up in the Transformers movie. I was a big Sideswipe fan as a kid. It didn't bother me that movie Sideswipe didn't look anything like cartoon Sideswipe. Didn't care. I was just happy enough the name was out there so that the character got its props and got to live on in another incarnation, if you will. Whatever. It's Recondo, it's Flash, it's Mutt. It's a guy with a name.
Now when 90% of them are dead, that's what's sort of frustrating about Retaliation and Rise of Cobra is like all the people that were supposedly in it but weren't really in it, but were in it, but weren't in it. Like I said, it goes back to source material, like there's so much. But I agree, G.I. Joe on television, I can't stand Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but if G.I. Joe was even half as bad as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on TV, I'd watch it. I think you're right about the film television thing.
There's some really good television out there, not just on the networks, but also with the movie channels and also now with the streaming services that I think that there could be some stuff out there. But to answer the question, I'm going to say Gung Ho.
Yes.
Gung Ho would be probably good for the movies. And I'd like to see Scarlet return.
Yes.
New character, bring someone back.
The last question, how many chins does Chuck have in there? And Gary had.
Oh, I'm not going to make fat jokes. That's not cool.
The last question from John, any chance that we will do any line-specific episodes? It's been a while.
We'll just say yes.
No, they will not.
We've got some line-specific thing. We've been planning stuff like this for a long time, and of course it always comes down to we've got regular episodes to do, and of course the special editions, which are kind of just stuff that doesn't fall in line with regular episodes. And so the movie episodes and the line-specific review episodes are things that even fall in past that. So we do keep these things in mind, and we do try to get to them. But especially just come out of the holidays, holy geez. You want to talk about work schedules. Gary and I have both been going nuts since the new year started, and hopefully that'll start to settle back a little bit, and we can get focused on doing some more fun stuff for you guys. So we'll say yes. We're not going to necessarily put a calendar on it, but it's certainly never far from our thoughts, at least, and we'll get to it at some point. You believe me, you'll be the first ones to know. John, good letters. Thank you for writing in. Next letter. Hey guys, and he even wrote out the hey guys. Long-time listener, first-time writer-inner. Love the show, and you guys do a great job. Sometimes I listen to the, quote, classic episodes when I do my morning workout. I miss Greg and Craig. Whatever happened to that one guy who used to guest host and talk a lot, but you can never hear him? Ha. Okay. I think he's making fun of me. I also started to listen to older episodes of G.I. Joe Review and thought it was cool when I heard some guys named Commander-in-Chief and General Hawk write in. So that's going way back, isn't it?
That's a long time ago.
You may know me as the Spider-Bat, who finished second in the March Madness tournament, was an ally of Mike on G.I. Joe Battle Lines, which is sadly over. Anywho, you asked for some questions, or at least some discussion points, so here are mine. So you guys know the Boss Fight Studio guys and the SK Omega guys. Do you think a merger between the two is possible? I think SKO Group had a good idea going. Love to see what Boss Fight would do with a group of elite military troopers. 2. We all know Scarlet loves Snake Eyes and Duke respectively in both the comics and cartoon. Flint and Lady J were an item on both of them. In your talks with both creative teams, did anything ever come up with how that relationship was portrayed? 3. I know in your talks with Kirk Bazigian, he talked about letting the old line go and starting anew. For clarification's sake, is he talking about scrapping the line and starting fresh with new characters and ideas, a la Real American Hero? From 12-inch Sergeant Savage and Extreme are taking ideas from an old line going a different direction, like Renegade, Sigma 6, or Pursuit of Cobra. I'm hoping he means the latter, as I think the Real American Hero line has great characters that can translate into new ideas, but what are your thoughts? 4, I know that Hasbro has missed the boat with G.I. Joe many, many, many times, but in listening to your commentary of Retaliation, I can't help but think that they messed up again. In the beginning, they talk about the Nanomite Wars like they could have done a TV show a la Clone Wars about Joe versus Cobra, with cool character development for Roadblock, getting ninja trained since he was the, quote, ultimate ninja master, and Flint being cocky. Am I alone in thinking something like this could work? Keep up the amazing work. You guys deserve all the praise you get and more. I'm trying to get to a JoeCon one day, praying as you go to the West Coast as I am in Arizona. Which would be a good spot. Maybe Mike could win another free trip and travel further.
He can't win another free trip.
Hey, you never say never.
I'm telling never.
I am a magic man. A little shout out to the Desert Vipers here in Arizona and the guys at G.I. Joe versus Transformers. I await my shot at the 4th chair. Thank you all. And that is not signed, or Chuck left off the signature. So we'll try and get into the letter to find a signature that we can attach to that for Spider-Bat there. Chuck. But in the meantime, we'll just go to the questions in order.
Should probably let Gary field this one.
My general impression is dead in the water, Gary. Is that correct?
So SK Omega was co-created by 2 of my best friends and 2 former Hasbro designers who I also know. I'm also really good friends with Boss Fight, as a lot of us are with SKO and Boss Fight, so it's not just me. So when I say this, I'm not guessing, but I'm also not going to fully divulge everything that I know about either company. Because that's not my business, that's not anyone's business. I'm not saying that to be harsh, I'm just saying it to be realistic. None of it's really anyone's business. However, since the question was asked, I will try to sort of answer it. You know, the thing you have to understand about SKO is that, and I'm not talking to you guys, I'm talking to the people listening. The thing you have to realize about SKO versus Boss Fight is that Boss Fight was created out of necessity They lost their jobs and wanted to be able to pay their bills and feed themselves and feed their families and not start over at another toy company where this could all happen again. I won't go into the politics of it beyond that. SK Omega was conceived as a love letter for a real American hero by some very passionate G.I. Joe collectors and two former Hasbro guys who worked on a real American hero who have an enormous respect and affinity for vintage G.I. Joe, not just the brand, not just the line, but also for the pre-production, which I'll get into in a second. So where toy design is Boss Fight's actual career, the SKO guys have their own careers, like in their real lives. And they weren't setting out to drop everything in their lives to commit to SKO, which is what Boss Fight was sort of forced to do, give or take. And while it seems obvious to fans and collectors that the two should do something together, because that sounds awesome, because everyone loves SKO and everyone loves Boss Fight, that doesn't mean that Boss Fight or SKO would find a common ground that is actually beneficial to either of them. Not in any personal way. I just mean like from a business standpoint. SK Omega, like I said, they love G.I. Joe vintage, they're vintage purists at heart. And they also really respect the way the G.I. Joes were made, like the pre-production of it, sculpting things 2-to-1. The prototypes that do exist for SK Omega figures are sculpted 2-up. And that might not be something that Boss Fight would ever want to do. I mean, I don't know if Dave Proctor or Fred want to sculpt 2-up and go through all that. I mean, that's more expensive. It's completely different than what they're... Now, Dave Proctor's had some... he's been on G.I. Joe for a long time, so he's had experience with Sigma 6 and sculpting at different scales. I'm not saying he can't do it or doesn't have... I'm just saying that Boss Fight, as what they're doing, they would have to completely deviate from everything else they've been doing in order to do it. I mean, that's just a huge conversation in itself. Like, would Boss Fight want to work with SK Omega? Would SK Omega want to work with Boss Fight? That's that's probably where the conversation would start and probably where it would end. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's a much larger conversation in regards to the two ever possibly coming together. You have to keep in mind that Boss Fight right now is concentrating on getting their first product out. So any sort of hype behind doing anything else has to be sort of restricted to the things that we know about that they're working on. As for SK Omega, though, it's not dead. It doesn't have a death certificate, but it's sort of hibernating-ish in sort of limbo where it just comes down to whether or not they decide. What I will say is SK Omega has not ruled out it never happening, but it's just not a priority right now. So they're not even like, should we do it? They're not even having that conversation about whether or not SK Omega should happen. But it's not dead. Like, if you had to say if it was dead or not, it's not dead. It's at this point, it's just it's in cryostasis until someone fucking wakes it up like Sergeant Savage or whatever. I don't know if you want to bleep out the fucking or the Sergeant Savage part, whatever your listeners find more offensive.
I don't know. Bleeping is pretty fucking funny.
So while SKO appreciate the love that everyone has for their stuff, it's not a priority for them. However, that being said, the SK Omega Hive playset will most likely end up at CoilCon this year. So if anyone wants to come actually see what could have been or might be or would have been SK Omega as far as like playsets and stuff go, that'll most likely be at CoilCon this year. So everyone can come and see what might or will or can or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, bring Kleenex because it's beautiful and you'll cry.
Yeah, but I mean, like he brings up a great point, and it's not that, how can I put it? It's not an impossible thing, because Boss Fight's doing something that no one else has done, and SKO wanted to do something that's been done before, but in a new way. And I like I said, for fans and collectors, it sounds like it makes sense, but it really starts with each business's mission statement. Boss Fight wants to push things forward. SK Omega wants to look back. And in order to find that connection, it really starts with the way that SKO wants their toys made and the way that Boss Fight makes toys. It's just not a simple, like, it can't just survive on hype alone, if that makes sense.
That is a surprisingly thoughtful answer.
Well, like I said, because, I mean, you guys are friends with them. I'm friends with them. But I talk to the SK Omega guys like once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, and I talk to the Boss Fight guys just as much. I'm just putting together what I know from both, because some of us are really close to Boss Fight and really close to SK Omega. It's hard because you want to speak for them, but you don't want to speak for them, and so that makes it even more like, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, it's tough. And I know that people are like, oh, SK Omega should do Kickstarter. And I'm like, honestly, money was never an issue with SK Omega. That's not even like in the equation. A Kickstarter is for people that kind of want to boost. So if SK Omega ever did a Kickstarter, it would just be to keep things really easy. Because it's, when you put it in a Kickstarter, it forces you to manage your business in a certain way. What you want to accomplish and that kind of thing. But that was never really SKO's thing. It was just real life interfered in a few places. A couple legal things happened that, like, because of real life, that they kind of let slip. But other than that, I mean, it's not like they were just like, we can't do it. They were just like, we don't really care right now. I mean, not care, but you know what I mean? Like, this wasn't a priority. I mean, everyone has their own life. And the difference between Boss Fight and SKO is Boss Fight's life is designing toys, and SKO's life was whatever they do in their, you know, Guy Cassaday, Ron Rudett, the two Hasbro designers involved, they have their own lives. Chris and the other SKO guy, they have their own lives. So there's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
All right, next question.
Next question with Scarlet and Duke, or rather, more accurately, with Flint and Lady J. You know, I don't think we ever did get to the root of things. I know we've certainly talked about that relationship with Bill Ratner and Mary McDonald Lewis.
Right.
And from their line, they both said that the Flint and Lady J thing was something that, you know, they were told was going to happen.
Right.
And progress as the series went along for Sunbow. Maybe that's something that this might be a question we got to hold off until we talk to either Buzz Dixon or Larry or both again, you know, because obviously Larry wrote the comic and he wrote it into the comic, but we don't necessarily know why. Buzz Dixon, you know, as the head writer for the cartoon, it was written into the cartoon, but we never really asked why. So that's a good question that we may have to just shelve, because I don't think we've done the right homework to answer it accurately. Third question, with talking to Kirk. Kirk's idea, as I understood it, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but Kirk is more of the thinking that just everything needs to be scrapped. The characters that are out there now need to be retired, and just a whole new slate of characters being brought in to be the new G.I. Joe. When we spoke to Kirk, I presented it as, you know, there's a lot invested in the characters of Duke and Snake Eyes and Roadblock and Scarlet, so those characters might be worth too much just to put down, but it may be worth it just to wipe them out and start clean slate like they were new characters, just with the same names. And so it was probably the second time we had Kirk on. We had the really big interview with him that got into this. And so both of those schools of thought were tossed out there, but I think that's where the line was drawn. Kirk's feeling was just starting completely fresh.
First thing on Kirk, he's on mute right now on my Facebook feed because he's a Patriots fan and he's annoying the piss out of me. It's really, really hard when you hate the Patriots as much as I do, and you see your childhood heroes of Kirk and Ron Rudett out there saying they hate us because of anus. Well, first of all, that type of language doesn't work with those guys. And second of all, I hate you because I hate you. And that's as Patriots fans. But anyways, Kirk, the more I thought about it, the more that I'm getting on the Kirk side of let's blow the damn thing up and start over. Gary, you had some thoughts on this. Go ahead.
Well, first you have to understand that Kirk is the ultimate G.I. Joe fan, because he's the only one that has been living and breathing G.I. Joe since before Real American Hero was Real American Hero, in a way that even Ron Rudett, Larry Hama, I mean, Larry Hama is sort of an exception, except keep in mind Larry came after Kirk. So if you go all the way back to 1980, of course, without starting a whole nother podcast, here's Kirk. He's one of like a dozen plus people championing bringing G.I. Joe back. And he's been doing it since then at Joe Cons, through his panels, in the G.I. Joe discussion group on Facebook. On Facebook, he regularly tries to get Hasbro to pay attention to him. I've seen him drag Hasbro marketers into his panels. He talks to fans. He is a fan. He's unlike anyone else in our hobby because he helped design the toys, make the toys, market the toys, and he teaches the toys in his classes. And he comes to JoeCon and does panel after panel after panel. And so first you have to understand that when Kirk says something, even if you don't agree, even if he is a Patriots fan, when he talks about G.I. Joe, you kind of have to listen.
I listen to him. I just don't listen to him as a Patriots fan.
That's fine. And Kirk is also the guy who thought that, hey, let's do Sergeant Savage. And at any point with his pull, Kirk probably could have been like, I only want Sergeant Savage on the shelves. But the whole idea was that a Real American Hero would continue on the shelves with Sergeant Savage. So Kirk, as a marketer and as a toy visionary or whatever, he was able to multitask the idea of doing something brand new and also keeping the old intact just in case. And I've said it before on Facebook. I think G.I. Joe for 2 years should be all new stuff, and once it's successful and comfortable, it should start trickling back in the old stuff. I'm totally fine with that. But I think what Kirk's talking about is scrapping it and just going a whole nother direction. And then, like I said, maybe when it gets, because Kirk's not going to forget, the 30 plus years he's been championing the brand by saying, hey, we never want to see Snake Eyes again. But I mean, they've tried everything else. They really have. They've tried everything else and it never catches. And every year it gets a little closer and then falls back for some reason. So I do think, like Mike said and like Gary said, that Kirk is talking about just wiping the slate clean, but with no disrespect obviously meant to a brand that he pretty much helped build, in some cases by himself, in some cases with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no hate. There's not an ounce of hatred for G.I. Joe and Kirk's art.
No.
It's been his life for 40 years.
Exactly. And so it's not, and that's why when Kirk says something, even if you don't agree, even if you think it should be, Snake Eyes, Duke, Scarlet forever and ever, he's not getting paid to say it. Nothing he says is obviously being taken into consideration on Hasbro's end, because he doesn't work for them anymore. He's saying it because he lived and breathed G.I. Joe while we grew up playing with it, and he's still doing it. So he's a machine in that regard, and he's been nonstop.
I remember the first time he said it, and I'm like, old man's crazy. It's just as simple as that. Old man is crazy. But yeah, now I'm leaning his direction.
Look at Pursuit of Cobra Snake Eyes, the Commando one, the one that tops everyone's list. Where do you go after that with Snake Eyes? Name another Snake Eyes after that you've been like, yeah, that's great. No, it's like, oh, that's done well, that's executed well. It starts becoming like, not flatline, but it starts becoming a plateau. You can't really spike it much higher than that. I can't speak for anyone that's working on the G.I. Joe brand now because we don't know who the hell they are. But everyone who worked on that Snake Eyes, whether it was Fred, Dave, everyone else that contributed, you can see the original wax sculpt for that on the 2D Toys site. And the original sculpt, the wax for that, is even better than the figure. So it's there's already this work of art out there that is Snake Eyes that half the hobby's tired of and half the hobby leans on, and that the brand has leaned on as an icon since 1982. But where do you go? After a while, every figure will have this amazing version. You just kind of like we were talking about the FSS and the convention sets. If they don't start doing the new stuff now, when that time comes, either everyone will be gone or they won't know how to do it. So yeah, I'm with Kirk.
All right, so moving forward, fourth question was Nanomite Wars, would it have worked as a TV series? And truthfully, it probably could have, but I can't say as the interest would have necessarily been there to base a serialized TV series on G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. So yes and no.
Well, and they did have the prequel comic. Not like that there was a lot of prequel in that comic, but they did have the prequel comic.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was just listening to our interview with John Chu in a previous episode today as I'm driving to and from work. It just happened to come up in rotation. And John mentioned in that you had to pay homage to the Nanomite Wars, but I really think listening to him, that was the only homage they wanted to give it, nothing else. Hey, you're thinking outside the box. It makes a good idea for a good TV show. There's a lot of good TV on right now, unfortunately, and I think something like that would probably get lost rather quickly just because it's G.I. Joe, but it's just me.
Yeah, even if you made a great one, I think the serious TV audience, capital S, capital T, capital A, would dismiss it as well, what's this action figure property? Whatever. I have to tune into Mad Men, and then the other side of it would be kind of the fanboy type where it probably wouldn't be G.I. Joe enough.
On a TV side note, I've been kind of dismissive about some of these series that have been on streaming services. I've been kind of under the impression that they don't necessarily have the budgets. The actors aren't necessarily as good, although it's not always the case. The sets aren't necessarily as crisp. I saw a pilot for the Amazon service, the Man in the High Castle. Mm-hmm. That was an excellent pilot, and I recommend everyone to go out and watch it. But I'm thinking maybe if there ever is a future for G.I. Joe to be on TV, it might have to be from one of those streaming services.
Well, it could have been on the Hub, but no.
Hub's for kids. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I would love to see a second and third season of Renegades. Trust me.
AMC made it so that Netflix and Amazon didn't have a chance but to step up because Walking Dead and Breaking Bad and even Mad Men just changed that landscape. And so Amazon, man, they're not messing around. I think there's a few that they threw out there so they had some bulk, but a lot of their shows are really well produced.
Have you seen The Man in the High Castle?
No, it's on my I finally got Amazon Fire or whatever it is, and so I've been going through all the Amazon shows, and there's a lot of really good stuff on there. And
yeah, there is.
G.I. Joe could really work. But you have to have someone that wants to do it, and that's always that isn't a G.I. Joe collector, by the way. You need to have someone that wants to do G.I. Joe before anything. And I thought John Chu wanted to do G.I. Joe. And actually, the one nice thing I can say about Retaliation, and almost the only nice thing, is that I really like John Chu's directing style. Because he actually has one, unlike Stephen Sommers. Like the end credits for G.I. Joe, if that's how the whole movie had been, it would have been a great movie. But I think that John Chu didn't have all the control that a fresh new director will have 10 years from now. I was actually upset that John Chu didn't get Into the Woods because, according to Wikipedia, that was like his holy grail of films to direct. When I heard that he wasn't in, when I first heard about the Into the Woods film, I'm like, oh, maybe that's why John Chu's not doing G.I. Joe. And then I saw that they had made it this giant, Oscar push thing. And I was like, wow, that's got to suck. Like, can you imagine, like, you do Step Up and you do all this stuff and you try to show that you've got the chops to do a dancing musical type thing. And then, wow, that's his, he's never going to remake Into the Woods. You know what I mean? Like, So now he's got Gem.
Not for a long, long time, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, well. Anyways.
Is that the mailbag?
That is the mailbag. And your attempt at the fourth chair, just ahead of Chuck. So that's a good sign.
Adrian McCarthy.
Thank you. Good letter, sir. Slightly ahead of Chuck.
Ted, you got anything for us?
It's time once again for little known facts about Little Springfield.
We can hardly wait. Go, Ted.
Thank you, Lou. Springfield was an English pop singer and record producer whose career extended from the late 1950s to the 1990s. With her distinctive sensual sound, she was an important blue-eyed soul singer.
Ted.
And at her peak, one of the most successful British female performers.
Ted.
What?
This isn't even a town called Springfield. This is Dusty Springfield.
Yes, son of a preacher man. Excellent singer. Talented lady. Lost her too soon.
Good night, Ted.
Is it time for juice?
Yes, it is.
Oh, God. Oh, somebody take Ted back to his quarters.
Eventually, Ted will get the right town.
Maybe. I honestly, at this point, I don't have high hopes for that.
You know what I have high hopes for?
No, I have no idea. I've always figured you as kind of a
low hopes guy.
Jaded loner, barely on the cusp of society.
Gary has high hopes for a 6-inch snow job to be released with a transformer.
Or perhaps a 6-inch snow job that transforms into a snowmobile.
Because people, 6 inches is going to save the brand, and merging with Transformers is going to save the brand. So the obvious answer is to just put the two together.
Obvious.
But only for snow jobs.
That'll be their test run.
The snow job laser rifle is what transforms.
The snow job / battle bear. It's the same thing.
What are people thinking? What are people thinking?
Oh, settle down.
Between the Patriots and that, and someone's trying to run me out of this hobby. I'm pretty sure of it. Anyways, you know what I got high hopes for? Joe Declassified. Gary, tell us all about Joe Declassified. What surprises you may have in store? I know it's early, but what might you have in store for JoeCon and current goings-on as well?
Well, there's something that I read at the beginning of every Joe Declassified panel because I think that it sums up nicely, and then I'll expand from that. These are the words of Sam Damon, who is the owner and founder of Joe Declassified, so these aren't my words, these are his. But I read them at the beginning of every panel because not everyone's familiar with Joe Declassified.
They're a bunch of elitists, aren't they?
They are, and I'll get to that. So let me read this from Sam. It's real short, and then I'll sort of expand on it. Sam's not the brightest person, as we know, so it's real short.
Truthfully, though, you're pretty safe because Sam also doesn't listen to podcasts.
That's true.
As he tells me every time we talk.
Yeah, Sam. All right, so this is Sam's sort of, it's not a mission statement so much as an explanation of what Joe Declassified tries to embody. And of course, for anyone listening, anyone listening who's unfamiliar with Joe Declassified, this is sort of your gateway into that. All right, so let me read this. At its heart, Joe Declassified is a labor of love. Founded in 2006 in response to lackluster efforts by official organizations to enhance the G.I. Joe collecting hobby, Joe Declassified remains the only fully crowdsourced, non-for-profit organization in the hobby today. We feel that we, the fans of G.I. Joe, take up the responsibility of ensuring the growth of our hobby, both in wealth of knowledge and broadening the fan base. Working with fan-friendly partner organizations, Joe Declassified makes an average of 6 convention appearances per year, has published 7 annual free magazines, and published hosts of archival information for the collecting world to share. Our primary goal is to forge a stronger and united collector community based on sharing, inclusion, and insistence, and to use every tool at the community's disposal to enjoy our hobby without the need for outside influence. So those are Sam's words. And they're great words because there's a misconception that Joe Declassified is about prototypes or rare foreign figures or artwork or whatever, when that is just a tool that Declassified uses to sort of engage the hobby as a whole. We have a magazine that we publish annually, as Sam said. We have a podcast that we publish sometimes. We're very active in the G.I. Joe discussion group on Facebook. And actually, that's how the G.I. Joe discussion Facebook sort of came to be, was Starbuck Chris Thrace wanted a place that was different from the forums. And I wanted a place where I could get some of the former Hasbro people that I know in one place, and it sort of blossomed from that. Obviously, Joe Declassified is very active on their own Facebook page. We have a thread on Joe Customs dedicated to Joe Declassified news, reveals, and pre-production. We have a website, joedeclassified.com, where you can download all the previous magazines for free. We've done panels at CanadaCon, twice at Assembly Required, Rollout Roll Call in the UK, JoeCon in Dallas. We set up the Declassified booth at all of those aforementioned locales, as well as CoilCon, St. Louis, Chicago, King County, Kokomo Toys in San Diego, and at New Jersey Comic-Con, because we really try to get ourselves out there so that as many people as possible can experience some aspect of Joe Declassified. We just want to share the history of toys and the people behind that, and the people behind that, and the stories behind that. But it isn't just that rare stuff, prototypes, and that stuff that is associated a lot with Declassified. That, like I said, that's just a tool that we use. Our mission statement is actually about building a stronger hobby and elevating the conversations within the hobby, evolving the discourse, as Sam calls it, to break those moments when there's nothing but pointless arguing and cyclical apathy. Give people something to talk about. Give the hobby back. Not that it's really been taken, but I mean, if you go on the forums, it's always the same thing over and over again, and then people get bitter and angry and they argue, and Joe Declassified sort of likes to show something shiny over here, and everyone looks over there, and then you can have like an actual discussion free of, trolling and whining and entitlement, and just to sort of, like I said, elevate the conversation. So we fill magazines, booths, panels, podcasts, Facebook groups, YouTube, with whatever we can find, but not for ourselves. We obviously don't do it for ourselves. If we just did it for ourselves, we'd never share anything. But like Sam said, it's, we do it through sharing and inclusion and assistance, because Joe Declassified has this open door policy that I don't think people ever really know about or consider. You don't have to have rare stuff or know anything about the Argent 7 or own Larry Hama's original phone number written on a piece of tape. You just have to want to be a part of Declassified, and hey, you're in. It's not an elitist structure, as Gary jokingly put forth in the beginning. We're not a bunch of elitists at all. There's dozens of ways to contribute to Declassified, whether it's monetarily. We have a PayPal thing on joedeclassified.com where you can donate money. Soon it'll be tax deductible, like we've already filed with the IRS. So soon, if you make a donation to Joe Declassified, you can file that, get a deduction, or opt out, whatever. We're always looking for people to write articles. It's kind of like Yojo. Like Yojo is the same way. It's volunteer based, but it's an open door policy. We just want people to feel involved, and we want people to want to be involved. And if they don't, that's fine too. People just want to go through the show and tell of it. That's also awesome. But in the end, it's all about giving back to the community and trying to make it stronger. So that's sort of what Joe Declassified's about, despite what people think when they're like, oh, well, they do a booth in a magazine with prototypes, and there's Gyre Viper on Facebook posting stuff with Declassified watermarks, and that's a tool because we want people to talk about that stuff, and we want people to know about the history of their brand and the history of their hobby. But we also want to do something with it. We also want the hobby to flourish. And that's why we're good friends with, well, obviously you guys are part of Declassified, so that doesn't count. But, what's on Joe Mind and Joe Customs and Yojo, and, we try to reach out and just make sure that people are, I don't know, what's the word? Engaged, because that's what keeps things interesting. That's what keeps the hobby going. It's why I surrendered myself sort of to Joe Declassified while Gyre Viper was getting front paged every week on whatever forum. When Sam was like, hey, do you want to be a part of Joe Declassified? I was like, yes. Because for a long time, people just thought I was doing everything for myself. And, oh, he's bragging. And, oh, he wants attention. And I was like, no, I want the stuff to get attention. I want you guys to be able to get Hasbro's attention. I want you to get each other's attention. And Declassified, to me, does all of those things. So that's when I didn't even hesitate when Sam's like, hey. And I'm like, yes. But as far as what we're up to, obviously I can't say much. We don't declassify everything out the gate. That would defeat the purpose. We have more podcast episodes coming up, a couple of which are extremely unique, not just to Joe Declassified, but I don't think they've been done in this hobby at all. We're going to try something new and different, and hopefully it'll open up a whole new door. We, of course, will have a booth at JoeCon. You need to come check that out, especially if you missed Assembly Required or CoilCon, because we'll have a lot of the stuff that we hadn't shown previously to those conventions. We'll be making their appearances at JoeCon for everyone that missed the Midwest shows, although this is a Midwest show now because it's in Springfield, the city in Illinois, Mike.
Ted.
Look, I know. I'm not your problem.
No, I know. But you know the guy, so, friend of a friend.
Hey, Ted's like 90. We're just happy he's out there. He gets around good for a 90-year-old.
He sounds like he does. There will be a few things at JoeCon that we're pretty sure change G.I. Joe history to an extent. As if you attended our panel last year, JoeCon, you know that we attempted to change G.I. Joe history by revealing that in the beginning all 13 figures had their own original head sculpts and were all supposed to be completely distinguishable from each other. So this year we've got a couple things that do that as well. Nothing can be sort of as impactful as something from 1982, but we do have some things like some characters that are some fan favorites where we've found some pre-production that tell a completely different story as to what they might have been. Keep an eye on Facebook, obviously over the year, whether it's in G.I. Joe Discussion or on Joe Declassified's Facebook page, because we got a lot of stuff going through there. We're really going to try to go all out this year in a more, what's the word? I don't want to say streamlined. The problem is during convention season, we're going to so many conventions, which spans 6 months, that we don't really get a chance to update Facebook as much because we want to save stuff for those conventions. So now the stuff that we've toured, we're going to start putting online. We're going to start touring new stuff and so. So if you can't make it to JoeCon this year, I am going to take some photos and post them online. Obviously, I can't show everything, but there will be a few things that if you miss CoilCon and AR, you'll definitely want to check out.
Be careful if you're taking photos of Declassified booth. That Declassified guy may shut you down.
Yeah. We have a Sam and a Jason in the way that the Avengers have a Hulk. So you don't want to – there's certain things you don't want to do at the Declassified booth. But we will have another free magazine this year, which we're working on. That should be an eye-opener for some. I think people will be really excited when they see that. But I can't say what it is. Yeah, other than that, just keep your eyes and ears open and, we'll be around. We don't stop. We don't sleep. We're like the Patriots.
Oh, God.
Not like those whiny Seahawks.
They have been kind of whiny.
I enjoyed the Super Bowl.
Did you?
No.
I'm going to say you're not a sports dude. I can't picture you really.
I love football. I don't watch it, but I love it.
Well, shall we wrap this up?
Yes.
It's time for what we got in. Chuck.
Yeah, I just have one this week, and it's to our buddy and friend of the show, Arun. Those of you who follow him on Facebook might know that he's been having some medical issues lately, and, the guy is perfect example of grace under pressure and fire. He's dealing with it with his usual humor and just, we're all pulling for you. I hope things work out well, and, and thank you for keeping us updated, and whatever happens, I know you'll make the most of it, so be well, friend.
Arun getting a shout out from Haley Atwell on Twitter.
It's not bad.
Not bad at all.
That's a couple notches better than Chuck.
You think so?
No offense, Chuck, but
I wrote him a song. What has she done for him?
Okay. All right.
We should wrap this up. I want to go watch Haley Atwell anyway. So.
Yeah. Yeah, really. The entire focus of the evening has just shifted.
Mike.
I also would like to reiterate Chuck's sentiment for Arun. It's a lot he's going through, and he is Arun with the stuff that he's going through has a better attitude about his life than I do going through nothing. So, Arun, you are the man, and get better soon, and we are thinking about you. By the same token, our sponsors, Kokomo Toys, all the cool stuff, Big Bad Toy Store, JoeArmory.com. Who am I missing?
Gyre Viper.
Of course, Gyre Viper Toys for all the toys you can't afford. AVAX Lab and Dorkside Toys, and of course Gary Godso appearing courtesy of Planet Nerd Rage Productions for all your finest sci-fi comic book fantasy needs. But along the same lines, our sponsor Don Armijo, some similar health issues. We are of course thinking of him as well.
Gary.
I would like to send a shout out to everyone in the G.I. Joe discussion group on Facebook, obviously, because that's where I spend most of my time now, and all the former Hasbro designers in there that make that group extremely unique.
And me, right?
And to, who's that? What's his name, Gary? The guy who fell asleep last week or whatever when we were supposed to record this.
That was Chuck.
Chuck. Into Chuck. Fucking Chuck. And then I would like to send a shout out to Kokomo Toys as well, because Todd always sends me fun stuff I didn't ask for.
Sponsor of the program.
Has he bought your Mad Bubbler yet?
No, someone else bought my Mad Bubbler. I am no longer a Thundercat collector.
No, I'm just saying, I know you sold it to somebody else, but has he brought it from them yet?
Oh, no. I offered it to him. I told him, I was like, you put a Mad Bubbler in your store, everyone will show up, and he just chose to never get any business, so whatever. I want to send a shout out to Brian Kaufman, Nova, for
just for the hell of it.
Oh no, because he owes me something. Brian, you owe me stuff.
You're assuming Brian listens to the program.
And then,
he's smarter than that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Nobody from Northeast Ohio other than Star Joe's guys listen to this program. And maybe Pat.
I'd like to remind Mark Weber again not to, the fans really don't want a flag or a defiant.
Or a 6-inch line.
Or 6 inches. Oh, and to Joe Harris. Joe Harris made the Boss Fight t-shirts, which are the most comfortable t-shirts in the world. So if you are waiting for that Kickstarter and you're like, where's my toys? In the meantime, get a Boss Fight t-shirt or just have Joe Harris, reach out to Joe Harris and commission him to make you a t-shirt. Whatever company he's using for those shirts are so comfortable. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I could live in a Boss Fight t-shirt or whatever brand Joe Harris uses for his stuff is just like, it's as close to silk as cotton can get. It is just oh, I love it. It's amazing.
Gary, something to think about for this year's What's on Joe Mind staff shirts.
Oh my God, those shirts are, I don't know what, I know what, he told me what they were because I was going to tap him for another project, but like, man, those, I can't get, like, rarely have I ever put on a shirt and been like, yes.
Because
like,
the What's on Joe Mind staff shirts, while bitching,
they're dated.
They are starchy sons of guns. We got to get rolling on the 2014 edition, special Springfield edition.
I'm working on it.
Sports bras.
That'll come. We'll be part of the What's on Joe Mind for her.
All right, my turn. Shout-outs. The standing shout-outs to Planet Nerd Rage Productions, Mark Chang and the guys over there, of course. Standing shout-out to Debbie. Chuck, thanks for hooking me up with the snow job and bat. Appreciate it. Just for the record, everyone, Chuck asked for no money. I offered to pay. He did it out of the kindness of his heart. Of all the shit we give Chuck, but I really appreciate you hooking me up with this guy. I really appreciate it.
It was the least I can do. And hey, Gary, don't thank me. Thank you, too, because I was able to cover it.
Thank you, YouTube. Also, shout out to Chris Murphy and the guys from the Indie Toy and Comic Expo and the Indie Toy and Comic Expo podcast. They needed a pinch hitter for episode 7, so they called me in at the last minute to help them co-host that, and we talked a little G.I. Joe among some other things. Fun time. Look them up on Facebook. The Indie Toy and Comic Expo podcast. I appear on episode 7. I could appear on other podcasts, Mike, not just you.
You've probably been on far more than I have.
You're like the standing third chair at Dave and Duvall, aren't you?
No.
Are you the evil third chair?
I'm the evil third chair. They fear me. They even try to make fun of me, but it's because they know that at any moment I could destroy them.
They hate you because they ain't you. Apparently, that's how it goes.
That's so I've heard.
Shout out to all our fans, sponsors, anybody associated with the show.
Including Dave and Duvall at Toy World Order. Thanks for the shout out.
I would like to thank Gary Head for joining us again. Gary, I thank you so much for short notice. We just found out this afternoon that Justin was just too old, and we got you on board. So we appreciate you for being flexible and short notice and sticking with us into the late evening.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay. And thanks for talking about the classified.
No, yeah.
So for our basement-dwelling showrunner Chuck, co-host Mike, I'm Gary saying to all of our men and women serving God bless, Godspeed, and come home safe. Good night, folks, and thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time for the next episode of
What's on Joe Mind?
It will be number 100.
The century mark. Big